what I do is I help people in all stages of life, people in recovery, people. I work with a lot of normies, but I help people live more meaningful social lives. And what I'm trying to do is take the word party back from
Mm,
this idea that party means blackout or getting wasted.
mm.
Welcome back to the PMR podcast. My name's Andrew. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. Really, really excited for I think our first guest of the new year.
Mhm.
Episode 69. Very exciting
Wee!
stuff. Lot of energy in the room right now. So yeah, I'm just really excited to get this thing rolling.
That's right. Welcome back, episode 69, which is electric. My name is Mitch. I'm an addict and alcoholic. Very, very excited today. Like Andrew said, our first guest since even in the new year. His name is Evan Cudworth. He is the world's first and best party coach. Super, super dope guy. Really, really enjoyed talking with him over the last like month-ish, I believe. And we saw each other on TikTok of all places, and I love like his message and his energy, and really, really excited today to talk with you, hear about your story, hear about what you're doing. So I say we jump right into it, man. Welcome to the pod.
Heck yes. Mitch, Andrew, thank you for having me. My name's Evan, addict, alcoholic, and just want to start off the top. 69. I lived in Venice Beach for 7 years, and there was like it was 69 degrees 70% of the days. And whenever I would post on Instagram, I would still put the 69 and put nice under it. And it became such a joke because I lived in New York and Chicago and Cleveland and Shanghai and people from all over the place. It became this huge long running joke that it's like it's always 69 where Evan is. So this couldn't be more fitting.
On brand, and it still
I
is. Yeah.
love the energy. My parents lived over there and they said the same thing. For some
Yeah.
reason, it was always 69 degrees.
Yeah. But I want to open this up by just first like gratitude, just acknowledge you both for the courage of doing this podcast and how much time and effort you're putting into it. I've had the opportunity to listen to a couple episodes. The one on anonymity was great, but also last night I was driving to a meeting. I got invited by an old guy who I old friend who had crashed his wedding once upon a time, and he is now sober and invited me to a meeting. It was like an hour away, and I didn't want to go. It was a Friday night, and I was like, you know what? This is a really cool opportunity to put on a podcast and listen. And as I was listening on the way, you both were just talking so vulnerably about where you're at, and you got into step nine and the set aside prayer. But Mitch, you were just talking about, amends are two sentences, like it's I've done wrong. What can I do to make it better? I'm very much in my step. I'm in step nine right now, and I'm dragging my feet on a bunch of them.
Hmm.
And because I'm overcomplicating it, I want to make it about me, about a lot of these things. And I walk into the meeting, and it's about 6 or 7 people, and without getting too much into it, or like it was a step nine meeting that day. And we were all talking about that work. And I felt like I didn't have anything to say about it but I listened to your podcast and being able to bring your experience of you two talking through that, it felt really cool and special that I'm very much don't know what I'm still so new at this, and I try to keep that every day, but I'm so curious. And I was never this curious when I was out drinking or using.
Mm.
And what a gift that we can come with curiosity to this. So just wanted to open with that and say thank you guys very much.
Yeah, man. That's beautiful. That's funny. I'm working through amends right now as well, also dragging my feet, also overcomplicating things. And yeah, I've learned a lot from this guy over here on that topic. He's as much as he likes to beat himself up and say he's not this or he's not that, he does he does know what he's talking about. And he does have some good advice. So, and I really like what you said, like curiosity. I never really thought about sobriety like that. That's totally new for me. Like, it's kind of a cool concept. And I'm just thinking for a couple seconds after you said that, I wasn't, the only thing I was really curious about when I was drinking and using was like, how can I not get caught, or how could I like just keep this going? Like it was all like a straight line tunnel vision. It wasn't really curiosity. It was like more like, I wonder if I can just fucking keep doing this. Not,
Yes.
not like, oh, I wonder what's over here. I wonder what's over here. I wonder, there was no like, oh, I want to explore and discover myself, or no, just I wonder if I would be able to just do this. Like
Yeah.
drink and use like this forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never approached sobriety like that. That's a really, really cool kind of concept.
Yeah. Yeah. And if there was a curiosity, my favorite part of the book is you know, wanting to be the director, producer, actor, all of these things in our
Yes.
lives, right? And like letting that go, like because previous to that, like what I was most proud of, I directed a play in college. I directed A Midsummer Night's Dream, and like when I thought like how much control I had, I loved that. Like that,
Mm,
I was chasing that high just as much as everything else that I was doing. So I loved that illusion of control, and that still shows up very much in my life
Mm.
today.
Definitely. And I appreciate your kind words on saying that. And it's really cool how you were listening and that kind of fell into the meeting. That's beautiful. I think that's like what
Yeah,
Andrew and I talk about all the time. Is like if there's any goal, it's like to help one person. Sounds like we did with that episode. Uh
yeah,
that's sick.
yeah,
But my one of my favorite lines too in the book is like I wanted to be the actor, director, all that stuff. I remember reading that with my sponsor and I was like, damn, it's like it's talking to me, like
yep.
that
yeah,
control piece is so wild for us.
yeah,
And I've felt so much freedom and release. We've been kind of talking about before we recorded from letting go of that control, and it still creeps back in, obviously. But I think like over time, hopefully, if I continue to work the program how I have been and it continues to evolve, like that control piece will whittle away a little bit more and more. Um,
yeah,
but it's so wild how like now when I come into situations, I can see within like minutes or maybe sometimes it's longer, but like, oh, that was me trying to take control of that.
Mm.
And see and look what I did when I took control. I messed it
yeah,
up. So it's interesting. Um,
yeah. So what I'd actually love to start with, so what I do is I help people in all stages of life, people in recovery, people, I work with a lot of normies, but I help people live more meaningful social lives. And what I'm trying to do is take the word party back from
mm,
this idea that party means blackout or getting wasted.
mm,
If you look at the etymology of the word party, it only started to mean that very recently in the past, like 50 years or so. But party, really means to take part in, right? Like to be a part of something big, and not even just enjoying yourself. Yes, you can have a party by yourself, but really like that letting go of being in a group environment, or being able to be in a party and take part in things, I think is such a crucial part of what we've been evolved as humans to do. And I feel like capitalism and a lot of things are creating a lot of reasons for us not to do that.
mm.
We have these very radically individualized lives where we can scroll on our phones, uh, or play it safe. And it's like, how do you let go and take part in the most meaningful parts of your life? Um, so I want to hear like when you guys think about your social life or taking part in things, like what's working, what's not working for you right now.
Mm.
Mitch, I'll let you go first.
I love that you broke down the root of party to take part in. I've never thought of that. And that makes so much, or is it like to be a part of or to take part in?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
a little,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
really cool. I think because we always talk about being a part of is like, one of the cures in substance in addiction, like because we don't feel a part of. So that's one of the things that pushes us out. How's my social life going? I think I was very much a party user in terms of like the like you were saying, the most recent way the word has been used. I don't think that I can count on probably both my hands less than 10 times that I've really like gone out since getting sober, and I've been sober for 7 years. So I know there was a lot of anxiety tied to like going to bars, going to parties. But kind of, as I'm saying that, I'm thinking like similarly to you, I think actually within like my first year, so I went back to college after I took like 9 months off, went to rehab, all that stuff. I went back to college. It's a small college, a pretty big party scene there. And I think initially I couldn't go out, and like locked myself in my room and stuff. But then like I was a part of the swim team, and we had, planned, theme, costume, like all sorts of parties all the time. And I felt like I had to go. And I remember going to those and like having to just drink like a ton of energy drinks to try to like bring in energy there because I was so uncomfortable. I was so nervous. I was staring at everybody's cup, and like being sober that early on a college campus, it was just like, they're saying, they say like if you hang out around the barber, you get your hair cut. It was just like
Yeah.
dangerous. And my one rule was that I tried to hold myself to was like the second that I see a drink and I get a thought like that looks good, or I want some of that, or I'm gonna get one, then I would leave and basically go lock myself back in my room. Where that's progressed to is I just haven't gone out, and I miss that too. So I feel like I'll learn a lot from you, and I'm excited to, and I already have. But I think there's a nervousness and kind of a fear for me currently around like bars and parties and even like I think in a week or so from now, I'm going to support a friend. She has like a concert um at like a little venue out here, like a bar thing. And like I'm already like I said yes, but I'm like preemptively kind of like
Mm.
that'll be my first time in a bar again. Not that I'm like gonna drink, but it's just there's just a nervousness there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to come back to some of that in a second. But Andrew, how about you? What's been going
Yeah,
on?
I mean, I agree with a lot of what Mitch like has said, and it's kind of funny. We do diverge quite a bit with what it was like when we were using. I was a total isolation user.
Mm.
I was not much of a drinker. I was an opiate, benzo. I was into pills and weed and powder, and um, I hated parties because I thought alcohol, like I was playing a massive game of chemistry all the time, and I was like, well, alcohol is going to screw up my mix here big time and limit what I can do with everything else. So I was like, honestly, I had this whole like I really had a big ego. I still have a big ego, but I had a really massive ego about what I was doing. And I was like, I'm not going to go drink like beer with the plebeians. Like, I'm going to stay in my room and cut powder like a fucking king. That's what I thought about myself. And um, that really led me, like, I have been in parties, like, high and on drugs, like, unfortunately, I lived in a apartment my senior year with not unfortunately, it was great kids, but they like to have parties, and I was part of a fraternity and everything else, and um, I would get so annoyed and just like look down upon these people having a good time and like dancing and singing and playing drinking games, or just like dancing and singing, not even playing drinking games, and I would like they'd be like, Staley, you have to be at this party. Like you have to be there. It's like in our room. You can't not go. And I would like text friends I had like across the campus and be like, hey, you guys gonna go out tonight? Is your room gonna be empty? And they're
That's
like, well,
fun.
yeah, we're gonna go out. And I'm like, word, like if I bring my own weed, can I just like crash in your room for the night? And they're like, sure. And I just fucking dip. Or if like that wasn't an option, I shit you not, like I would put my Beats on, like my fucking headphones, like over ear headphones. Like they'd be like, dude, you have to move this chair and this table. Like we gonna dance here. I'd be like, put it in the corner. They'd like throw it in the corner. I'd keep the TV in there. And like I'd play fucking 2K and do drugs in the corner while everyone else was like drinking and fucking having a good time. Like
Yeah.
that's how it was for me.
Yeah.
And really like whatever, like we laugh about it and whatever. It's funny looking back, but the reason that I think was gravitated towards the substances that I did is because I have massive anxiety
Mhm.
about people liking me, about are people looking at me? Am I doing the like I struggle to dance at a fucking family wedding. Like
Mhm.
I'm like, dude, people are like, I can't cutting loose for me, like doesn't exist. That's
Mhm.
why like Oxycontin and fucking Xanax were a fucking savior for me when I was
Yeah.
using. Cause I was like, I really can't do this.
Yeah.
And that's the only time I felt free was like if my brain was off.
Mhm.
So when I got sober, I just kind of I didn't I just stopped going anywhere like to like bars. Like if there was I would go hang out with some friends on like a Friday night in the city and like in Boston. And these are really close friends of mine. And if like more than 5, 6 people started showing up, I was fucking out of there. Like if it wasn't a small group, I was dipping. And I made sure too, like the other thing, and it goes with substance is like even in sobriety, I'm not like I don't vape, I don't smoke, whatever. Like if you do, great. If if you don't, cool. Like doesn't matter to me. But I don't really do that. But when I went to these places, I fucking made damn sure that I had cigarettes or a vape or something that I
Mhm.
could just like be doing so I could feel like I was still like part of the scene. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, how it's like how it is now for me, 2.5, almost 3 years sober is um I kind of like my life is pretty not boring, but I don't like do a lot. Like I have a girlfriend and on the weekends I like do my laundry and fucking go to the dump and I live in a suburban apartment and I, go see her, we go to dinner and we hang out and it's a good time. But like parties, they definitely still scare the shit out of me. Like I'm
Yeah.
just like I don't want to be here because I don't know what to do with myself. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Yeah.
that same thing. Like people are watching me.
Mhm.
People are. I'm gonna be judged. I'm gonna say something stupid. It's just that's how it gets.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys both for sharing that. And I think that fear is so real. It's something that I still deal with as a party coach, as an extrovert. I had the opportunity on New Year's Eve to go out to support a buddy who was DJing Radius, which is like this giant warehouse club in Chicago with Hot Since 82, who's just like one of my favorite DJs. And even like caffeine used to be a huge thing that I would do before these things. And I've really tried to cut back from a lot of that. Um, Something that I work with on clients and something that I do as well now is I no longer see my first job as how do I make myself look good, but taking the service thing, it's like I try to find somebody else that looks anxious and I help them feel like they belong.
Mhm.
And that is like the first thing that I try to do in those situations. And to anyone who's listening to this, if you're in a situation, I call it the triangle of anxiety. So if you can literally put your hands like this, and if you're ever anxious in a social situation, go like this. And there's three ways that you can get out of that anxiety. One is what I just mentioned, which is like connect with somebody, right? This is find somebody maybe it's a stranger, and this could be hard, but like thinking it less as how am I trying to impress this person, but more of how can I make this person feel more comfortable being here. The second one is getting clear. So this is breath work. I do box breathing a lot in social situations where I'll breathe in through 8, hold for 8, out for 8, hold for 8. And sometimes I'll go and do that in the bathroom. Sometimes I'll do it in a walk around the block. And you can actually, our breath is literally a gas pedal and brake, through changing how we exhale versus inhale can literally send signals to our brain to tell our body, I feel safe here, or I want more energy. And Andrew, I'd love for you to maybe talk more about that in your practice, but breathing is there. And then the top one, the top of this pyramid of the triangle anxiety is, I call just like going crazy, right? And this is that, when you're at the wedding and you just go out there and you just start dancing or putting yourself out there, doing what is cringe, and everything you want is on the other side of cringe, is what I talk about a lot. Those judgments that we have of people out doing their things, like oftentimes what we really want is the other side of that. And I see this happen with a lot of people in recovery and in sobriety we have very legitimate fears about being in these places, but then we tell ourselves that these places, or even not even just the places, but these things are off limits to us, right? Like I've been to so many sober retreats and places where people are not drinking at all and they're dancing and they're having, and like it still makes me cringe to be there. Like I'm like, ugh. But as soon as I let go of that and feel that freedom and get on the other side of it, there's usually something that like I really needed that was on the other side of that thing. And so one of the things that I try to do is break down the possibility of, if you're not comfortable being this around, a bunch of drunk people, like there are so many places now that you can go to that are having parties and doing things where it's not driven by the drugs and that kind of a thing. Yes, you have to look for them. And yes, that anxiety might be there, but usually these places are pretty well designed to help you integrate and have that experience. Because I'll follow close with this is that, they say the program is not a thinking program, right? Like my brain is always doing the thing. Our like social lives and is doing is we tend to think so much, but we need to somatically, we need to experience and have that release. And whether that's Mitch, whether that's at a Ravens game when you're like screaming and jumping around and like feeling that energy, like that is so good and necessary for us, and we need to have that experience. And you can get it in the gym and you can get it in some other places, but being around other people and having that group experience releases chemicals and things in our brains that are vital to like keeping us connected to the hope and the love and the joy and all those things that we are oftentimes tell ourselves that are off limits to us.
I do tell myself that, like, that it's off limits.
Yeah.
Like I think, and might be common with people like us too, is I almost have like an outlook that not that sobriety is a punishment, but that like I'm no longer allowed to feel certain ways. And if I do feel certain ways, I'm in a dangerous spot. And I got to be careful and I got to get the hell out of there. And because because I think I don't have enough associations. Like I haven't had enough experiences because I haven't put myself in those situations, but I haven't had enough experiences sober, like to be like, no, it's actually okay for me to feel this way sober, and I'm not in danger. Because every time I've felt that release and just joy and like kind of just pure, not pure but it was fake. But the only time I felt like that was on drugs. Like that's it. And so feeling that way sober almost seems like a trigger. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah, it's like for me too. It's like the image, a lot of like what Andrew is talking about, image and how I look and how I come across, and like it's so funny because it's been something that I've been working on forever. This like the ego and like don't want to look foolish, don't want to look like an idiot. And then when I'm in situations where someone is like letting loose or having fun, like you were describing, like at a wedding or a party or whatever, I'm envious of that. Like that looks fun. That looks like, like a blissful moment, And I definitely have them with Ravens games, as you said. I will run around my apartment, but usually it's only me or like somebody else. But I think it's like it makes a lot of sense, especially when you were explaining it. And like I do have, I think a little bit different from Andrew. I do have a want to be able to go to like concerts, parties, and stuff like that. It's still there, it's probably been diminished down or like, oh, that's just not something that you do because I do have a tendency also to isolate it at points. But I think it would be cool to like be able to because when I've gone to concerts, like I'll still like just like, head bob, and that's all like it's all I got, but I won't like cut I won't there's like just such a resistance or a fear to cutting loose.
Half measures availed us nothing.
That's right. That's
That's a
right.
lot of the things that I deal with with clients is that triangle of anxiety is because we're only committing to half measures. We're
Hmm.
saying, I don't want to be seen as crazy. I don't want to be seen as a person that's like deeply connecting. And I think a lot of us have legitimate reasons for that. And a lot of times the drugs and the alcohol created experiences that were fake for us.
Hmm.
And so we tend to see that fakeness everywhere else. But a big part of my mission, what I really try to do, and this is just my opinion, but there's a lot of people that talk on sobriety coaches or people that talk about and they're just bashing alcohol and drugs, talking about how bad it is for you. And like, in my opinion, like people that could use it well and like go for it, like please go for it, have fun. Like it's
Mhm.
obviously working for a lot of people, and it worked for me. My experience is it worked for a really long time, and that's my experience.
Hmm.
Um, and if we want to live a fuller life, if we're constantly looking at every single person who's taking a drink and saying you're faking it, you're having a shitty experience, then I think it's really hard for us to see authenticity and joy in the world because we're constantly looking for reasons why, well, it didn't work for me, so they must be faking it.
Right.
Mhm. No, I'm in the same boat. That's one of the things I struggle with now. Like definitely, going back to the example I gave of being, with in my at literally just like an apartment party with not even 2 dozen people and just looking around at people drinking and just being so cynical. Like,
Yeah.
wow, like look at all these fucking miserable people like
Yeah.
who are just like faking their entire experience and need to drink to feed to force themselves to feel good.
Yeah.
Like that's not I need to remind myself, and I like your example because I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, everybody should just go get smashed. Like, but for me, I know that like other people are able to drink and have a good time, and then Monday rolls around and they stop drinking and they're good to go, and okay, that makes them not like you and me, and that's great, and
Mhm.
that's like there's a reason that people do drink. Like there is a reason, and it's not always because they're unfucking comfortable with each other and they
Yeah.
have to force themselves to have fun. Um, so for me as a sober person and a person that like deeply believes in my own sobriety, it's almost like I can't push that onto somebody else. Like they're not having my experience. And sometimes I can see it, like we can, people like us, like we can because it's hard to hide like literally from looking in the mirror and seeing, people who are struggling as well. But, by and large, like most people are not, like us statistically.
Yeah.
So to try to like say, okay, well, I had this experience, that means everyone else must be having it is like it's really at the core, it's egotistical,
Yeah. Yeah. But again, I think why it's so cool and important that you guys are doing this podcast for everyone, but again, for particular young people, like my experience, I walked into my first meeting probably 10 years ago when I was 25, or so longer than that now. But I couldn't, when I tried to go to fellowship or like sober events, like I lived and worked in the rave industry, and all they told me was that all my friends were toxic. That whole scene is toxic. You can't be around these people. Like, don't go there. You'll get a haircut. I'm bald. Okay, I can hang out in a barber shop. All right, like, and sorry, that's ego check. All right, that is a very important thing to say. But that thing always makes me upset. I've been bald since I was 22, and it's like I can't get a haircut.
That's a
Um,
classic.
yeah,
You get your
I give my
mustache
mustache
trimmed.
check.
Come
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And listen, there are definitely places that it's really important that I avoid and I don't put myself in. But one of the genesis for this party coach idea that I started was because when I went to go get healthy and get wellness, I found so many of the sober communities to be so hierarchical and just pointing fingers and frankly very boring. And I was like, sobriety is really important, but like the living a full life is also very important to me. And I think that will keep me sober. And that has been my experience is when I started hosting these day discos in LA on the beach where we would do breath work, we would do ice plunges, we would do like this whole day party that people could come and hang out, and there was no alcohol there, but it like anyone else would have thought it just looks like another like Venice Beach party.
Hmm.
And I'm still figuring out like how to do this in the best way, right? But I do see a future where the party tent is bigger, right? Like it's yeah, maybe there's the after hours place where people are doing their super heavy drugs, but I do think there's this happy medium that everyone is more hungry for, that we can all feel more comfortable in these spaces.
A
So
hundred percent.
that's what I'm trying to find.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. We will support you on that, and I think that that's a really good thing to be doing, and uh I think it's lacking too because like you mentioned earlier too, like that a lot of our society thinks that there's like maybe a need for alcohol and drugs to be included to be able to party. It's like kind of
Hmm.
like a package deal. So whenever you're like sharing the experience and showing the experience that that is not like a needed thing, or even if like, you also kind of touched on like if you're not one of us, that's dope that that's something that you can add maybe as an addition to it.
Hmm.
But I think it's really cool. I think when I first saw your channel, I was like the party coach, like I was like, what's going on here? Like he's talking some sober stuff and party. It's like my initial reaction, full transparency, is like that's like fire and ice. Like those things don't go together.
Yeah.
And they do, and you showed that they do, and I think that's really cool that you're doing that. Um, it gives me it just it's showed me and helped me learn that even with talking in the last 40 minutes or 30 minutes whatever about the anxiety that I have there um and it's probably just like deep down, let me know what you think about this, but just like a deep down a true acceptance of myself, because if I was living in a state of full acceptance, like I wouldn't care about what other people think, and I would just go out and vibe. So
Hmm.
it feels like maybe there's some of it that's rooted there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, as your friendships have evolved in sobriety, and you meet people in like different places and things. That's definitely evolved for me. But do you guys ever talk about this with friends? Like, do you talk about being bored or wishing you could do other things, or how does this come up among your
Yeah.
friends?
I mean, for me, um, I live. Mitch might be different, and I'm be curious to hear what he has to say. But again, I use in isolation mostly. Um, so, and even when I was with people, like I wasn't like I didn't really want to be with, like, I would be with them and I'd just be like, yeah, whatever. Like, the only reasons he's here is because he brought some shit. Like, that's really it. And so now, my friends, a lot of them haven't changed. There are definitely people that I just used with, and that was it. And I don't talk to those people really anymore. But with friends that I have a real connection with, like a real deep kind of authentic connection. And, when I made those calls from treatment, they were like, dude, we're here with you. We support you, whatever you do. Like, and they're wondering how they can help me. I have a handful of those type of friends. And, um, for me, it's kind of difficult sometimes to be, because a lot of these guys, like, they've slowed down a little bit, but shit, I'm 26. Like, people are still doing their thing. Like, and there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. And for me, I don't, it's kind of a contrast between, yes, there's nothing wrong with that, but how much of that can I really kind of be around?
Yeah.
So, for instance, like, I have a really close friend, sober friend named Pat. I actually live with him. Um, and I think having sober friends, is huge. Like, that we can have fun. Like, it's not just, and going to meetings is incredibly important. I don't want to downplay that, but it's not just, we go to a meeting and we have a bite to eat and we go our separate ways. Like, we do some shit. Like, so for instance, me and this friend Pat, we've done trips to Montana, we've gone to Colorado,
Yes.
we've been hiking, we do cold plunges together, we go to yoga classes together, like, just doing things that, like, are healthy for me, but also, like, wow, this shit is fun. Like, I feel alive when I'm doing this. That's been big. Um, and the other thing is, like, self knowledge is, like, knowledge of self and what I can really handle is important. Like, I go every couple of years and I see, some of my friends from school who were on a lacrosse team with me and in a fraternity with me. And, you know, they do their thing. Like, and I, I go and I'm honest about where I'm at, and I'm like, hey, like, if you see me dip, at some point, don't take it personally, man. Like, I just gonna have to dip at some point, like, because I'm there reaches a certain point. I'm curious to hear your perspective on this, but for me, there kind of reaches a certain point in every kind of party and scene that I've been to, and maybe I'm just going the wrong ones. Like, in the night where, like, all right, people are kind of, like, getting sloppy. It's time for me to get this, like, I become, maybe it's a personal problem, I don't know, but, like, it starts annoying the bejesus out of me. I'm like, fucking the people I'm hanging out with are, like, now kind of spittling in my face when they're telling
The
stories.
stories
And
get repeated
yeah,
two or
they've
three
told me
times. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same story 6 times and whatever. So I leave, but I would be lying if I told you, like, I was never self-conscious about my situation, like, even with these close friends. Like, I'll go, and spend a weekend visiting or doing whatever, and it'll be in the back of my mind, like, oh fuck, like, I feel like I'm not getting the full experience,
Mhm.
because, and they're, like, half thinking about it too, like, oh, like, this dude, I have this great friendship with, but we used to get high.
Yeah.
Like, we're not doing that anymore. So I don't know. It's and maybe that, I you could probably inform me better than I could, guess, but maybe it comes with time, and just adding all those new experience, kind of stacking them on top of each other. Who knows?
So
But that's kind of been my experience.
yeah. So something I want to offer to you, and then Mitch, I'd love to hear your uh, opinions on this. But one of the things I work on with clients is it's okay to have both mindsets, but when we go to have fun, we typically have a consumer mindset or a creator mindset, right? when we were drinking and using, obviously there was a lot of consumer mindset in there, right? Like I'm going to consume and therefore I will have fun. A creator mindset is, what you've started to do of like going on these hikes, like the cold plunges, things like that, like creating environments that are naturally going to have these things. Um, if I find myself having to be in a situation, or sorry, if I get to be in a situation where my friends want me around and they're partying, which is dope. That doesn't happen a lot. Sometimes a lot now, but sometimes they do and they want me around. I try to go in with a creator mindset into that situation and say, what can I create in this space that's going to be new and exciting for these people?
Hmm.
At a very base level, like I started hosting these anti-anxiety pre-games in LA before we go out clubbing, where I would line up sriracha and ginger and like all of these like crazy shots that the time they're like, remember whatever made us do that thing? So that's one thing, is like taking that creator mindset. The second thing is, I started hosting those disco day parties, right? And I had some of my Coke friends who I'd only text between 5 and 7 a.m. for years. I invited some of them to come to this event. Now, did they all say yes? No, but a couple of them did, and they got to come experience this new thing with me, right? So, yes, it took a little bit extra energy and it takes a little bit of a different mindset, but if you can evolve beyond the party owes you or these people owe you something because you're going there to consume something and say, actually, I'm going to be the creator of my own experience and I'm going to bring something here that is unique. And then after I'm done doing that shots, I could dip because I was a part of it. Totally changes the energy and your purpose for why you're in these spaces.
Hmm. It
So
means
yeah, yeah,
I just want to chime in, like I know the feeling, right? Because again, back to this example of this, these apartment parties I'd go to. I'd go with that mindset, like I'm here to consume fun,
yeah,
like be like, and I wouldn't have any fun because like I'd be taking the same mindset I had when I was drinking and using and trying to apply it to a situation where I'm going to be sober.
yeah,
Like, and that's what it didn't work. But
yeah,
for instance, I went out with my friends to Tahoe, and my buddy has a house out there, and they all drink and whatever. And um, the one thing I did is every morning I would do breath work, and like over the course of the time, like people they first day like
yeah,
only two of them hopped in, and then five of them, and then
yeah,
we're all doing it in the morning and kind of getting that natural buzz, and then going out and boarding and skiing and everything else, like. And then a couple days too, I was like, there's a river in the back, and obviously there's snow everywhere and it's freezing. I'm like, let's uh let's go in the river and see how long we can stay in there. And then next thing you
yeah,
know, we're doing like a cold plunge. And I'll tell you, like, that type of shit is what really does make me feel a part of. Like, and
yeah,
I brought that shit to the table. Like, I was like, you know what, I have something to offer this group, and like to kind of do something that's going to bring people together. It's like, so yeah, I don't know. I think that like that made a world of difference. Like I felt like, oh, I'm actually a part of this fucking trip.
yeah,
It's cool.
yeah. Yeah, Mitch, how does that show up for you?
So for me, I think as you guys have been talking, I've been thinking like one of my main things is trying to be a loving, safe place for all people, including myself, and like trying to be as organic and as real and as present as I can possibly be, which I don't do all the time, obviously, but I think like I haven't really been in this kind of mindset and gone out. So this like event that's coming up in the next couple of weeks, I think will be like a good opportunity for me to test. Because I feel like I can be really present. I work in treatment. I can be really present and bring energy, and we'll play games and go outside and stuff like that. Um, in the treatment places that I go into and try to bring that kind of vibe there. Um, it'll be interesting to see if I can bring that, into into a bar space. I think in terms of my friends, I've handpicked mostly guys that don't go out. Um,
Hmm.
there are, and my friends, my using friends, if you will, like kind of Andrew said, like kind of fell off. We just fell off from each other, upon getting sober. Um, and like my roommate likes to go out. I remember when he was doing that a little bit. I would go out here and just like have a terrible time, but I was having a
Yeah.
terrible time before I left, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to. I
Hmm.
don't want to be here and just kind of be that dude that just like stands around the side and whatever. I feel more comfortable like on a Friday, Saturday night at home. And I
Hmm.
have felt more comfortable on a Friday, Saturday night at home for the last 7 years, you know.
Yeah.
So there's a certain part of it that I feel like there's a lot of growth to be there for me for sure. And then there's a certain part of it that it makes sense why I've kind of like uh, stuck to what works. There's
Hmm.
parts of my recovery that I think I'm really trying to look at now and adding other programs on, you know, uh, to grow out because there's a part of me that like finds something that works and like hold on to it for dear life,
Yeah.
because I don't want to shake, whatever. I don't know what could go. I don't know if it could get better or worse on the either side of that.
Mm.
And so there's a big part of me that has like held firm on what's worked to this point. And that
Hmm.
I think that may may have inhibited some growth here and there. Um, but just listening to you and hearing from you and Andrew today, like, uh, has been eye-opening for me. I mean, that's how
Yeah.
this podcast always works. We bring on people and they share their experience, and it's like it like unlocks a door, almost every
Yeah.
time. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll share like a possibility for you. Again,
Yeah.
part of my story is, I was raving and throwing parties in New York, and going to Burning Man was a big part of that.
Mhm.
And if you're not, anyone who's listening not familiar, Burning Man is like a 10-day city that they build in the Nevada desert, and like 60, 80,000 people go out there. And yes, there's a lot of partying, there's a lot of drugs, but it's really an experiment in like temporary living and partying and sustainability. And there's art and music and all of those types of things. The first 2 years that I went, I was such a consumer, like I went and just was doing crazy about it things, and like 2 to 3 day benders, and it was really tough. Um, I got to go back in one of my first real bout of sobriety with about like I think 5 months. I had like 5 months, and I was like, I'm going to Burning Man.
Oh man.
And I went sober, and it remains the best week of my life and like the most powerful, cool thing that I got to experience. And there's meetings out there, and there's sober camps. It's called Anonymous Village. And there's like meetings around the clock, and there's all kinds of sober people that are out there doing that. And you ride your bike out there in the desert, And like I had my camp, we're like riding around, and uh, guys, like being sober there and realizing that like wow, only a small percentage of the people here are actually doing anything, but I was just choosing to surround myself with that the whole time. The previous 2 times I'd been there, like there was camps out there that were full gyms. There was like CrossFit gyms that you could do, and I worked out like all day with these gyms. And then I was building artwork and learning how to weld, and I got literally a tattoo by somebody. And like there was all of these like sober, excited people that were there was a camp that read James Joyce's Ulysses, and we would like read each chapter of it and like sit there, and it was like this whole world is out here that I had chosen an experience of drugs and alcohol the previous 2 times here, and simply by choosing a different experience, the same place was a completely different experience. And I'm not saying that is the case for everyone, but I think a lot of us addicts and alcoholics, like we surrounded and chose the world in which we saw it. And until we have a creator mindset of looking beyond what that is, I think it's really easy to like get stuck in that. And like that moment, like then I went back out after that, not shortly after, but I did go back out. But that week is what brought me back into sobriety. I was like, that was such a powerful experience for me that I know that I can come back and find that again.
Hmm. And
And yeah, go
oh,
ahead.
my bad. You can finish if you want.
No, go ahead.
Oh, oh, I was just gonna kind of piggyback right there and say like I think that's fucking sick, that you'd be able to be in the same spot and have a much, much, much different experience without the drugs and alcohol there. I just wanted to ask you like how like your recovery changed, or like I guess how you changed once like deciding where you're at now to stay clean and sober, and how that impacted partying or being out with friends and being social. I know you've kind of touched on just now how it like changed, but if you could take us to like I guess a little bit of like your early recovery story there.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to start, I'm grateful to, we haven't even talked dates. And I don't think I don't like to talk super important, but
Yeah.
I'm grateful to have I got 18 months this last week.
Hell yeah.
Um, and I'm also very careful to say, like I've done step one and I'm grateful. I don't know if I'll ever drink again, like
Yeah.
everything is a possibility. I'm very much I surround myself by recovery and one day at a time. I'm grateful to be sober now. And
Mm.
every day or part of my life that I get to spend sober, I'm proud of that. But I have no idea what my future will hold. Who knows? I'm not one of those people that says I will never drink again. I don't know.
Yeah.
God knows that.
Mm.
Um, and that's what's different about this sobriety. Because in previous ones, I love making promises to the world. And I would make these big sweeping declarations. And I was very concerned that people knew me as this, or that my date and knew my dates and saw my chips and things like that. And I'm slowly unwinding some of that. Um, what's different about this sobriety is that my last bottom was a spiritual bottom instead of a physical, or I was living on the beach. It's Venice Beach, like best shape of my life. I was teaching hot yoga. Like from the outside, I think my life looked very glamorous. And the story of my last drink is it's so obnoxious. But I was at a TikTok influencer event,
Oh no.
in West Hollywood, and I'd declared on Instagram that I wasn't drinking this year. And I think I actually had not been, but I'd done a bunch of coke at Frost Festival like 2 weeks ago. I was in this
Mhm.
period. I was like, I was just doing coke and I wasn't drinking.
Right.
And I was at this event and I was interviewing somebody that I knew was sober and talked about sobriety. And they were interviewing me about, oh, so you party sober and you do all these things. And I was like, yeah, I definitely, yeah, like that's what I do. And something about that anxiety, Andrew, like I still get anxious. I felt this anxiety and I turned around and there was a half finished tequila sunrise on the counter. And I grabbed it and I drank it. And I felt that shame like drip down my neck. Man, I can feel it right now. And I was just like, there was so many moments that I would do that of like, but it was that little lie that unraveled the next week or two. I could just completely fell apart. It's like, I cannot manage my life. I can't keep this up. And a bunch of other things were happening, but that allowed me to reach back out to some people that I knew in the program. And I was like, I need help because a bunch of other things were falling apart that, I hadn't paid rent in months. And I was like, like I was completely delusional about so many things.
Hmm.
And the easier stuff to weigh, I went searching for the spirituality in yoga and for the self-help and all these other books. And, I tried everything else.
Hmm.
And again, my experience, it's not black and white. Like I use a lot of those same things today in conjunction with program. And I know a lot of people are saying like program comes first, but I still have a lot of other things that are a part of my life and my experience and my recovery. So, but what's different now is that I don't have any big grand declarations. Um, and it is much more spiritual than it ever was before. God
Hmm.
God is very different now.
Hmm.
really powerful hearing, you know, you share that with us. And I thank you for that. Being very vulnerable because I got, you know, I got chills when you just talked about that last drink you had and you get choked up. Like I get choked up too, man. And I love how you talk about a spiritual bottom. Like that's what it was for me too. Like some things were happening. Like I had some ultimatums in my face and everything else. But I had denied them all thus far. Um, and what really happened is like, did I really want to just lie again? Like, did I just want to lie to myself? Did I want to lie to people around me? Like, again, like, did I just want to crush my soul? Like, talking about, you know, that guy you're interviewing and about being sober and partying and you like that icky feeling, you know, you're fucking lying. Like, yeah, like I got to the point where it just like, I didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I know what I know that feeling so well. And it's really brave to like to say we don't want to do that anymore and to do something about it. So I applaud you for for realizing that because most of us, you know, most people like us, they don't get the chance. Like,
Yeah.
or they get the chance once and then they don't get it ever again. Like, so it's beautiful that, you know, that it in a weird way, it's beautiful that that happened to you and that you listened to it.
And
Yeah,
it's
it's
again, so
amazing.
we didn't get into any war stories. I don't have to share them, but I got so many chances, and like the crazy shit I was doing towards the end of all those red lines that we say we'll never cross. Like
Mm,
I had a moped, a motorcycle, and it's like towards the end, it was just driving back and forth from the bungalow with like 8 balls in my pocket, like tequila stuffed in my shirt, and just like crazy. Um, Down in Mexico, like there was accidents and there was things, and the cartel was getting involved. Like these, like I don't talk about these things because I think I'm still like processing some of them, but
for
like
sure.
I was so good at hiding that part of my life that yeah, it was gross, and I got a lot of chances, and God somehow protected me through it.
100%. And you're exactly where you are right now, as we are where we should be.
Yeah.
We're all living miracles, really. My mom did call me that, and that used to make me uncomfortable. And the more I've thought about and looked into the word, people in recovery, I feel like we're all walking around like miracles. And for you to take that and for you to spread that message, that very organic and honest message that you have, seriously. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it because um, as recovery is growing, and it's becoming more open, mental health is becoming more talked about. Um, I always really, really like to thank when we have guests on that are open with their recovery and like just like straight up, this is what it is. And I love that you take the perspective of like, I don't know if I'm going to take a drink again. It's always a possibility. I'm kind of in the same spot in terms of like relapse. If I ever came on here and was like, I'll never relapse again, I promise you, I have a healthy fear of relapse for me,
Hmm.
uh, and that's what helps me stay sober at points. But yeah, man, I just feel very grateful to have met you and like uh, for me, it's like, I don't know. It's just like so weird, episode 69, bring on the goat, the party coach, it's just a really cool thing. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Well, again, closing with gratitude. It's so cool that you guys are doing this. One, just for each other, because when I was listening to that podcast again last night, the stuff that we can talk about in meetings and in other places, it is one context, but there's a deeper level of like authenticity, I think sometimes that comes across in stuff like this in these conversations.
Hmm.
And I don't know where that comes from. But I think it's important that we do this. And yet I'm always open to feedback. And yeah, to anyone that's listening to this, yeah, just thanks for being curious about your recovery. And I hope that I maintain the humility to always maintain curious about mine.
Mm.
It's a great way to close.
Yeah, I love that.
I did before we, kind of wrap up, I did just want to touch on the fact that you are, a yoga teacher,
Yeah.
and that's really cool. And that you are into breath work. You talked about box breathing on the app today, and
Yeah.
it's just crazy what God does. Like, could kind of just make us think a little bit, what our higher powers do. Like, I just did a yoga class this morning, a hot yoga class, and I came on the episode today after doing some third eye, access breath work, and just like, you know our higher powers put, like-minded people in front of us, and we can collaborate with them and just share with them in this, and it's beautiful, man. So I'm really really thankful that you came on, and who knows, I might have to come out to the West Coast and catch a yoga session.
Heck
That would be
yes.
amazing. We got to get Mitch in the studio as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Party on, baby.
that's right. Yeah, no, we are. Today feels very much in alignment. I had like a really weird like out of body when the pod started, where I was like, this is gonna be a great day. So that was cool, and that's a cool feeling to have. So uh, again, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you. For all those listening, we'll link all Evan's stuff in the description, and excited to continue to talk with you, work with you, grow with you, see where we go. I feel like we could bring you back on and rip another like 4 hours easily. So
Heck yes.
it's
Love
been
it.
amazing. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, boys.
Yeah, I'll keep coming back. I'll make sure the next time I'm at a social situation, I gotta just do something fucking cringeworthy, man.
That's
There
And
right.
you
there's
go.
freedom beyond that.
Yeah.
That's right.
There you go. New
Thank
freedom,
you
new
so much.
happiness, new cringe.
New
Yeah.
cringe. This has been episode 69. You heard it here first. New cringe. We'll keep
Nice.
coming back.